When I walked into the restaurant, I thought I was late. That's how it looked. Everyone was already seated. Glasses clinked, laughter rolled across the linen tablecloths, and the candlelight made the moment feel staged, like they had started the celebration without me. But it wasn't just the food already being served. It wasn't just the way my sister was mid-toast. It was the fact that there was no chair for me. I stood at the end of the table, blinking, coat still on, holding a small gift bag I had picked up for my mom. Yes, my mother. Even though it was my birthday, there was one chair left, and it was filled by her purse. I stared. Everyone else didn't. Not really. One cousin smirked. My uncle looked down. My mom sipped from a wine glass and said calmly, "The floor suits you, doesn't it?" And then they laughed. The whole table. A burst of shallow, polite, we don't know what else to do laughter. My heart didn't drop. It detached. I heard the words. I felt the blood rush to my face. But what I really remember is the scraping of forks against plates, the clink of a bottle being uncorked. My sister, snapping a picture like nothing happened. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, maybe 20. No one stood up. No one pulled out a chair. No one said, "That's not okay." So I put the gift bag on the corner of the table, slowly without shaking, and said nothing. I turned around, walked out. The last thing I heard was my mom's voice. So dramatic. Outside, the city noise rushed back like a wave. Cars, horns, people laughing that weren't laughing at me. I walked 3 blocks before I realized I was still holding my coat in one hand. Still didn't cry. I stopped at a crosswalk and looked at my reflection in a shop window, makeup too carefully done, hair curled for the first time in weeks. That's the thing about the ignored, we overprepare. We hope, just once, they'll make space. That maybe this time they'll see us. But there was no seat, not a mistake, a message. And I received it, loud, clear, delivered with a wine glass and a smirk. That night, I didn't go home. I booked a room in a hotel with my emergency savings, sat on a white duvet cover with perfect hospital corners, and watched the city move under me. That's when I made the decision. No screaming, no revenge plan, just a boundary. I turned off my phone, ordered room service, and rewrote the night because I knew something they didn't. I wasn't just a girl without a chair. I was a woman who'd been building something quietly, and tomorrow morning, they'd see. My name is Janelle Moore, and from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me, because when they told me the floor suits you, they didn't know I'd already built the stage. That restaurant moment, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was just the most public chapter in a story I've been quietly living my whole life. I was always the extra, the helper, the fill-in, the one who held the camera while my sister posed in a dress I couldn't afford, gifted to her by the same mother who once told me, "We can't spoil both of you." Claire, my older sister by 2 years, was the favorite, the golden child. She was praised for bare minimums. I was punished for showing emotion. When Claire brought home a B, they framed it as resilience. When I brought home an A-, I got a lecture about slipping. She could cry at the dinner table and be called sensitive. If I spoke too firmly, I was difficult. My mother used to tell me, "You're strong, Janelle. You don't need all the attention." What she meant was, you don't deserve it. It didn't start with birthdays, but birthdays were the worst. When Claire turned 16, she got a backyard tent party, catered food, live music. When I turned 16, a shared cake during her graduation party. Her friends sang louder than mine. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was lucky just to be included, that if I worked hard, showed up, and stayed quiet, I'd earn their love eventually. Spoiler, I didn't. I helped them when they needed money, covered rent when my mom got behind, proofread Claire's resume, drove her to interviews, co-signed her apartment when she couldn't qualify on her own. And each time, I told myself, this will be the one. The one time they say thank you. The one time they finally see me. The one time they let me sit at the center of the table, not off to the side. But last night proved what I should have accepted years ago. They didn't forget to set a seat for me. They chose not to. It was a joke to them. The floor suits you. My mother had said it with a smirk. sipping wine like she'd been waiting to deliver that line her whole life. And maybe she had. Maybe I was never the daughter she wanted, just the one she tolerated. The utility, the shadow that didn't talk back. Until now. Because walking out of that restaurant didn't feel like a meltdown. It felt like liberation. Like I'd finally stopped asking to be seen by people who refused to look. And what they didn't know, what none of them bothered to ask about, even when I hinted at it, was that I'd been working on something. Something that told the truth they never wanted shared. And that something was going live in less than 24 hours. I thought someone would call. Not right away. I knew better than that. But I figured maybe later that night. A text. A passive-aggressive voice note. Some attempt at damage control. Instead, nothing. I checked my phone once, around midnight. Still nothing. The only messages were from work. One happy birthday from a former roommate. And a coupon for a free coffee. That silence was louder than any slap. I stared at my phone, lit up against the dim hotel room, and realized they didn't just forget me. They didn't miss me. I could have vanished into the street, and their night would have continued. Champagne laughs, inside jokes I was never part of. And why would they call? I played my part too well. I showed up when no one else did. Paid for the birthday cakes when Mom forgot. Cleaned up the living room after family dinners. Listened to Claire cry over relationships, only to be accused of being too judgmental when I offered honesty. They never saw me leave because they never really noticed I was there. So I stopped waiting. At 1 a.m., I turned my phone off and opened my laptop. I pulled up the press preview, the one I'd had saved in my drafts for weeks. A media embargo that was set to lift at exactly 9 a.m. the next morning. The title of the series? What We Carry. Stories from the Family Table. A 6-part documentary I co-produced, hosted, wrote. Not about my family exactly, but close enough to burn. Each episode told a story of emotional labor. The invisible child, the uncelebrated daughter, the caretaker treated like a convenience. We used actors, changed names, but the truth underneath? Mine. The last episode, that one was raw. I filmed the voiceover with a lump in my throat. Some daughters are raised to be quiet. Some are raised to be responsible. And some are raised to disappear. At 9 a.m., the embargo would lift. The full series would stream. And my name, Janelle Moore, would be listed in the credits as creator and narrator. I didn't write it for revenge. I wrote it to survive. To tell the story I was never allowed to speak aloud at our table. To give the girl on the floor a platform. The girl they said the floor suits you too? She was about to be broadcast into living rooms across the country. And maybe, just maybe, the people who laughed while I stood empty-handed would finally see who they left out. And feel what silence really sounds like. The documentary wasn't some side hobby. It was everything I'd pour my soul into for nearly 2 years. Late nights after my corporate job. Weekends spent interviewing other women like me. Scripting voiceovers with shaking hands. Editing footage on a cracked laptop because all my money had gone to rent, and helping the same people who forgot my birthday more than once. I pitched it under a pseudonym at first. Didn't want it to be about me. But the producers, real ones from a mid-tier streaming network, said my narration was what made it personal. Gave it depth. Gave it rage without violence. They offered me a contract. Then a full writing credit. Then, eventually, my full name in the credits. I hesitated, because even though I'd been invisible my whole life, part of me still believed they might finally see me if I just waited long enough. But that hope had died the moment my mother said, "The floor suits you." So I signed. And now, on the morning after my walkout, I sat on the edge of my hotel bed and watched the premiere notification light up. Episode 1 was already trending. The title card opened with a single line. Some daughters grow up loved. Others grow up useful. I watched the first 5 minutes with the volume low. The reenactment, a family dinner, a daughter washing dishes while everyone else laughed in the next room. A mother saying, "You're too much, you know that?" I didn't need to watch more. I had lived it. I checked social media. Hundreds of shares. A growing comment thread. Women tagging each other. This is us. I feel so seen. Did you cry during episode 3? I cried during episode 3. Then I saw it. A local news station had picked it up. Streaming Spotlight, What We Carry explores unspoken family wounds. They used a still image of me recording voiceover, soft light, headphones on, looking focused. It was a good shot. I looked strong, not angry, not bitter, just steady. I closed the laptop and breathed out slowly. I wasn't going to send it to my family. Didn't need to. They'd find it on their own. And when they did, they'd see their daughter, front and center, voice clear, not raising it but letting it echo. Because the camera had been rolling long before they told me the floor was mine. And now, the world was watching. They didn't call when it aired. They didn't text when it started trending. But I know exactly when they found out. It was around 10:42 a.m. Because at 10:43, my phone lit up with a text from my sister. WTF did you do? No greeting. No punctuation. No denial either. Just panic. At 10:47, another came in. You seriously made a whole show about us? I didn't reply. I was at a coffee shop down the street from the hotel. Hoodie on. Sunglasses. Watching people scroll through their phones and lean over to friends, whispering about the documentary that had just dropped. I heard one woman say, "It's like she's telling my story." She didn't know I was sitting 10 feet away. At 11:06, my mom called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her voice was breathless, like she'd run to the phone. Janelle, I don't even know what to say. I saw it. We all saw it. Why would you do this? Why didn't you just talk to us? Talk? When I stood at the edge of that table in a designer restaurant on my own birthday, holding a gift bag for her, she told me to sit on the floor. There was no talking left to do. What she really meant was, why didn't you stay quiet? At 12:14, my uncle sent me a screenshot, a paused frame of the opening credits. My name in white, centered, sharp. Is this really you? I left that one on read. By 2 p.m., my mom had left 3 more voicemails. The last one wasn't angry. It was small. You embarrassed us, Janelle. People at church are asking questions. Your aunt won't stop crying. I just don't understand what you wanted from all this. What did I want? Not much. Just to not be erased. Just 1 year where I didn't have to beg to be acknowledged. Just one birthday where I didn't get told to sit on the ground like a guest who overstayed her welcome. Instead, I gave myself the platform they never offered. And what happened? The world listened. By evening, the documentary was number 3 on the platform. I was getting interview requests from podcasts, indie blogs, even one morning show. Not because I was famous, but because I was familiar. Because thousands of women had lived their own version of that dinner table, that laughter, that small cruelty wrapped in family smiles. And now they had words for it. A voice. Mine. But my mother didn't see it that way. She sent one final message that night. A paragraph. I read it once. Then again. She said I humiliated the family. That I twisted the truth. That I made everyone look like monsters for one bad night. Then, near the end, she wrote something that made me pause. You always needed more attention than the rest of us. I guess this was your way of finally getting it. That line, that was the whole point. She still didn't see it. Not after everything. Not after years of being invisible until they needed help or a favor or a photo taken. Not even after the world saw me first. So I did what I should have done years ago. I didn't defend myself. Didn't explain. Didn't fold back into the good daughter they thought they could guilt into silence. I blocked her number. And I exhaled. For the first time in decades, I wasn't waiting to be understood. I was just done. I used to think silence meant failure. That if I didn't reply, I was running away. That if I didn't explain, I was letting them win. That silence was weakness, a small life hiding behind a closed door. But now, I understand something they never taught me. Silence is an answer. And in my case, it was the only one they would ever hear. After I blocked their numbers, I didn't announce it. No dramatic post. No cryptic quote. No new era selfie with a caption about boundaries. I just vanished from their story. And for the first time, I started writing my own. I extended my hotel stay. Gave myself 1 week. 7 full days of zero obligations. No texts. No expectations. Just me, my breath, my thoughts, and the city buzzing outside a window that didn't frame my past. On the second night, I ordered takeout and watched the third episode of my own documentary like I hadn't written it. Because in some ways I hadn't. That version of me, the one who had stood in that kitchen at 17, trying to explain why Claire's words hurt, only to be told, "Don't be so sensitive," she wrote it. The girl who stood in her bedroom while her birthday cake sat in the living room untouched because Claire was having a bad day. That girl finally had a microphone, and I didn't need to add a single word. The world heard her. By midweek, emails were flooding in from viewers. Women in their 30s, mothers in their 50s. A teenager who said she showed her dad episode 2, and he cried, really cried for the first time in her life. One message stood out. I thought I was crazy for how much it hurt to be the one no one saw. You put words to something I've been carrying for years. Thank you for not sugarcoating it. Thank you for letting it be ugly and real. That one made me cry. Not a sob, not a breakdown. Just quiet tears. Gratitude. Release. Because the biggest lie I had grown up believing was that my pain wasn't valid unless someone else confirmed it. That if they didn't admit to it, it didn't happen. But that's not how pain works. Sometimes pain is the room you're not invited into. The birthday toast that never mentions your name. The empty chair at a restaurant where you were the guest of honor. That pain doesn't need a witness to be real. And healing? Healing isn't loud. It's not always fire and revenge. Sometimes healing is eating a meal slowly without waiting for someone to interrupt. Sometimes it's sitting in silence and not mistaking the quiet for punishment. Sometimes it's hearing your sister's name, trending next to yours, and not caring. She tried to respond, by the way. Claire posted a vague story about family drama and how some people will exploit anything for attention. I didn't watch it. A friend sent me a screenshot. I deleted it, not out of anger, out of freedom, because I was no longer performing forgiveness, no longer earning affection. No longer fighting for a seat at a table that was always going to be too small for me on purpose. By the end of the week, I had found an apartment listing. Small, private, bathed in morning light. I signed the lease because I didn't just want distance. I wanted space, to breathe, to write, to live without waiting to be chosen. And when the leasing agent handed me the keys, she said, "Do you need help carrying anything?" I smiled. "No," I said. "I've been carrying everything on my own for years. I've got it." I threw myself a birthday dinner, not the night of the restaurant. That day didn't count. That wasn't a birthday. That was a message, the last one I ever received from people who spoke in cruelty and called it tradition. This one was mine. It wasn't flashy. There was no guest list, no seating chart, no linen napkins folded into swans. Just 6 chairs, 3 friends. One long wooden table I rented for the night from a backyard garden space I found online. The lights were soft. Strings of bulbs hung overhead, the kind that glow like stars that stayed too long at the party. There was music, low and full of warmth. Nina Simone, Leon Bridges, a little Billie Eilish for the poetry of it, and me in a burnt orange dress I'd bought just for the occasion. Nothing expensive, but it fit. It made me feel like a person who deserved to be seen. My friends brought dishes they made themselves. One brought candles. One brought flowers. One just brought her whole heart, and that was more than I'd ever gotten on any birthday before. We didn't make speeches. There were no toasts about surviving hard years or escaping toxic homes. We just ate, laughed, passed plates around like it was sacred. At one point, someone asked, "Is this your first real birthday?" And I thought about it. I thought about all the other birthdays. The one when I was 10 and Claire had a meltdown because her cake had fewer sprinkles than mine. The one where I was turning 21 and Mom invited her friends instead of mine. The one last year when no one showed up because they forgot to send the group text. Then I looked around that table. People who knew me, not just what I could do for them. People who didn't need explanations. Who didn't ask me to shrink so they could feel taller. I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "This is the first one that feels like mine." They didn't clap. They didn't pity me. They just smiled back, like they understood the weight of that sentence without needing it spelled out. Later that night, I walked home with leftover cake in a foil-wrapped box and a bottle of sparkling cider in my tote bag. I didn't cry. I didn't ache. I didn't replay what my mother had said that night in the restaurant, because it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the quiet joy in my chest, the crumbs on the plate, the candle I blew out not to wish for something better, but to say goodbye to what never was. I opened the door to my new apartment, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the floor, not because there wasn't a seat for me, because this time the floor was mine, and I had brought myself here. No performance, no apology, just a girl who gave herself a birthday, and made it beautiful. 1 year later, I sat on a stage across from 3 other women, a journalist, a therapist, and a social worker, all of us part of a televised round table on emotional labor and family estrangement. The irony didn't escape me. 12 months ago, I was being laughed at in a restaurant on my birthday, told by my own mother that the floor suits you. Now, I was sitting in a velvet chair on national television, across from a host who introduced me as creator of the viral documentary What We Carry, an advocate for invisible daughters everywhere, Janelle Moore. I didn't smile too hard. I didn't cry. I just nodded, steady, grounded, like I'd been practicing this seat my entire life. Because I had. When the host asked me how I'd redefined family, I said this. Family isn't blood. It's who sets a place for you, even when you're late, even when you're messy, even when you bring the truth to the table instead of the performance. Someone in the audience wiped their eyes. Someone else clapped softly. It wasn't a standing ovation. It didn't need to be, because I wasn't performing anymore. I was just telling the truth. When the taping ended, I walked out of the studio into a quiet hallway where the crew was already packing up lights and rolling up cables. I passed by the rows of empty chairs, stopped at one, put my hand on the back of it, and I smiled. Not because I was nostalgic, because I remembered. I remembered being 17, sitting on the floor of my bedroom while my sister blew out candles downstairs. I remembered being 25, cleaning up after my own birthday dinner while the rest of them laughed in the other room. I remembered standing in that fancy restaurant, holding a gift bag like a question, and realizing they never planned to make space for me. So I made space for myself. I brought my own chair, and when they wouldn't let me sit at their table, I built one of my own. I walked home that evening to my apartment, a different one now, a little bigger, with more windows and a bookshelf full of first drafts and overdue dreams. There was no voicemail from my mother, no text from Claire, not because we'd made peace, because I had stopped asking them to be part of mine. I ordered dinner, lit a candle, ate at my kitchen table with music low in the background. And at the end of the night, I pulled out a single piece of stationery, just one. I wrote a letter to myself, not to send, not to post, just to read the next time I started doubting. It said, "They told you the floor suited you, but you knew better. You turned the floor into a foundation. You built a stage. You brought your own chair, and you sat in it, fully, finally, without fear." That letter sits taped to my fridge now, next to a photo from my last birthday, the real one, the one with the backyard table and the string lights and no one laughing at my expense. Just joy, just belonging, just peace, earned, quiet, and mine.